Hey everyone, welcome to another Frontier Precision Tech Talk. My name is Jay Haskamp, and today we're going to take a look at just some little tips and tricks and things to help you be more efficient when working with layers and layer management in Trimble Business Center. As you can see on the screen here, I just clipped out part of this is actually a DGN file from MicroStation, but we have a lot of different lines and layers and colors and different things in here. And in this example, this is something that came from a third party, so maybe their layering convention and naming convention is different than what we're used to in their colors, and I need to convert things into something that's more manageable. The other thing I would be looking at in a situation like this is probably what do I need and what don't I need. So we'll look at a few little ways to kind of sort through this information, categorize it, organize it, and make it more workable with what our standards are. So the first thing I want to make note of is talking just a little bit about templates and TBC. I'm not going to go through the whole process of creating templates and things like that, but more importantly, I guess what I'm interested in terms of templates is if you have a set of standard layers or levels, whichever you prefer to call them, and colors and line styles and things like that, it's a very good idea to set up a template to contain all of that information. So as an example, I'll show you what I have here. This is a template I actually got from a third party called Rockpile Solutions that do a lot of tool development and tools and TBC and kind of some specialty stuff. And I really like this template because it pretty much covers everything I need in terms of maybe a construction project. So I have all these different groups, and within the groups I have like my existing features, my grading features, my road features, and things like that. So I use this template quite a bit to kind of sort my data out. And if I pick the plus next to layers, you can see here these are the layers that came in from the DGN file that I imported. So the goal is to get this information organized into my standardized information down here. So the first thing I guess I just want to talk about a little bit is going to be the View Filter Manager. So a lot of this work initially can be done in the View Filter Manager. There's a lot of helpful little tools and buttons on the top here that I don't think a lot of people are aware of that are a good place to start in terms of trying to figure out what you have. So the first thing I like to do is I like to hit this little zoom extents tool. What that always does is as I make a change, it'll just zoom me all the way out to show me everything that's on the layer that I'm about to isolate. I can turn that on and off, and I got some other little tools here I'll show you as well. So the next tool to the right is the isolate layer tool. So when I have this this box selected or highlighted, so it'll be yellow similar to what we see here, the isolate layer tool will show only the objects on the specific layer that I pick. Now that could be something picked in the plan view, it could be something picked from the list. So a lot of times what I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate my layers, and I'm going to roll through the data and determine what I want to keep and what I don't want to keep. Okay, so the next one here, we'll go through some of these. There's a hide layers of objects, view only the layers of the selected objects, and hide non-visible layers. So we'll look at those in a minute, but first let's take a look at isolate. So I'm going to pick my little isolate box here, and you can see these all kind of gray out. And now all I need to do is just pick my zero layer. You can see there's nothing there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it off. Then I'm going to scroll down with my arrow key on my keyboard, and now I'm on my berm edge layer, and I can see, okay, I've got some data here. Those are edges of berms that I want to keep. I have a ditch centerline ditch centerline layer. I have some ditch edges, some slope. This is kind of like my grading limits. Maybe I don't care about this one, so I'm going to uncheck that box and turn it off. And then I'm going to go down and see my sidewalk edges, back of curb, face of curb, flow line. Looks like center lines of lanes, lane edges, road PIs, pavement edges, shoulder edges. Must be turn lane edges and some pavement edges for sidewalks. and then points. Okay, so in this scenario, just to try to keep it simple, you can imagine how complex this can get, but I've isolated everything, I've looked at everything, and I've turned off this this layer here because I don't really care for it. So now what I can do is when I turn the isolate feature back off, everything, I'm going to turn my zoom extents off as well. Everything I wanted to keep that I checked on is on, and everything I want to get rid of that I don't want to see is checked off. So now if I want to just simply delete the objects in the layer or layers I don't want to keep, I can right click and hit invert. And what that does is it inverts the layer selection here, and then I'll just zoom out, I'll grab all this information and I'll delete it. And now I can right click again and go invert, and now that layer is gone and I've got everything I need displayed here. So the next item up here is going to be hide layers of selected objects. So maybe I want to go in here and I don't want to work with this specific information. Notice that when I pick this line here, if I right click and go properties, it's going to be my ditch edge line there. I can then go up here and it'll hide that layer. Now maybe I want to go down here, and I think these are my ditch center lines. Yep, ditch center lines. I can hide that layer. It's just a way, instead of checking, whoops, turn this back on. Instead of checking things on and off in this list, it's a way to kind of turn things on and off based on the plan. Okay. And then the next one that I'm going to go through is just view only layers of the selected object. So maybe I want to just isolate my shoulder, lane, and center line layers. I might just grab these guys here and then view only those layers, and then that turns everything off but those specific layers I want to work with. And then at the end of the day, I want to turn everything back on. I can just uncheck and recheck, and now everything is back on. So there's some nice little quick tools there to use. The other thing I want to look at here is going to be the actual layer manager. So that's going to be under the CAD tab here, and then there's a button here called Layer Manager. And then this is where you basically work with all the different layers in your project. So you can see you have your layer name to the left, it's alphabetical order, all of your colors. You can see if I grab here, I can pick kind of standard colors, or I can go into more colors and then get more specific with custom color numbers and things like that. I have my line styles, my line weights. These are going to be things we can also modify. So as an example, I have all the line styles loaded in this particular template. I can actually go out and import additional styles by loading a line type file, or if I even have, or I should say, I can load the line type file from Trimble. The later versions of TBC actually also include the AutoCAD line type file. So if you want it to be similar to with what you're seeing in AutoCAD, you can also go down here and you can search out an actual DXF or DWG file and then load in if you have some custom line styles that aren't in this default library from AutoCAD. If you have custom files, you can load those in as well. So the goal here is to be able to make your line styles and things like that match your CAD drawings, and you can do that with layers and different things. We have different videos on that. Line weight is just the thickness or the weight of the line, and then we have these things called group layers, and what these are the different groups that have been created to organize our layers. So if I close this here, you can see that I have all these different groups. So if I open up road alignments, then I have a bunch of layers under there, and I can turn the groups on and off. If I look at road feature, I've got other information. So the layer groups are these items or these groups right here. Now I can take a layer and I can modify the group. I can make a new group, or there's also a tool over here, which is the layer group manager, in which, let me just make this a little bit shorter here, in which I can manage or create or do what I need to with all my layer groups here as well. Okay, so if you're working in, looking for standardization and working with a lot of layers, a lot of times groups is a good way to manage things. It doesn't do a ton in here. Basically, based on how it's sorted, it might be a little daunting, but it certainly helps over in your view filter manager. And then whether the layers print or not, and then there's some delete buttons and other things there. Okay. Another tool I like to use in this particular layer manager is going back to just a little while ago when we went through and isolated these layers, I had this this slope location layer that I deleted everything off of. Well, that's not being used anymore. And maybe I don't want to run, you know, the full data cleanup under the data prep, the project cleanup. I don't want to run that and get rid of everything. I just want to get rid of unused layers. So one tool I can do is go back to the CAD tab, and under Layer Manager, you have this button right here. It says Delete Unprotected Empty Layers. So as long as the layer has nothing on it and it doesn't have a protected checkbox, it'll get deleted. So as an example, if I scroll down here and I look for this CG slope LOCN, that blue layer, notice when I hit this box, that layer is now gone. And I can also look here and it's also gone here. So after you go through and you clean things up and you get it down to where you want it to be, then you can just easily go into your Layer Manager and blow out any unneeded or unused layers and keep your list a little clean. All right, so now we've gone through, we've got everything we want to keep, we've looked at the Layer Manager, we've cleaned up our data and our lines. The next thing is going to be now moving the data from the layer that's imported into layers that maybe that makes sense to us, that we want to work with. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm not going to do all of the lines here, but I'll show you some different ways we can do this. There's actually a few. So if I first look at maybe this here is, if I go to properties, you can see it's our center line layer. Okay, so the first way to do this is to use the properties pane, and you can do this either individually. So I can grab, you know, this individual line and I can go look for road. Where are we? Road center line, and I can grab that. I always turn these off so it disappears and when I know it's done. And then you hit tab, and it's gone. Okay, but that only did that individual line. The other thing I can do is isolate that layer. Pick my road center line layer. Isolate, there we go, pick it and then isolate. And now I have just that layer isolated here. I can then grab this information, and in my properties, I can then change to, whoops, down here, road center line, and now it's done kind of like a mass change, for lack of a better term. So if I go down here, turned all those layers off, go to my road alignment, turn that group on, I'm sorry, not alignment, my road features, you can see I've now got all my center lines. So that's one way to do it, through the properties pane. There's also another tool in here under the CAD tab, and it's going to be the relayer objects. And this is another way to do things. So as an example, I've got this line here, and this is my shoulder edge. Okay, I can grab lines, and basically just like I did in the properties pane, I can go ahead and change the layer. So I might go road shoulder and hit OK, and you can see it's gone. Notice it closes when I hit OK. I can also grab that layer for my shoulders and isolate it and do the same thing. Relayer objects. It looks like it must have done it already. So let me look here. Road features and shoulder. And you can see it did all that as well. So the difference is when I pick relayer objects, if nothing is selected, I pick the target layer, and then everything I select or pick in the relayer will turn to that. So as an example, if I look at this again, and let's look at this layer here, is going to be lane edge. Okay, so I could go back into here, switch this to lane edge. Lane edge is going to be road, oops, say edge of pavement as an example. And then I could grab this line here, okay, hit OK, and now it puts it on that lane edge layer. Okay, so grab these guys, relayer, and so on. Now, that does most of the work that we're looking to do, okay? But there's another tool that I like to use in here, and this is an additional thing outside of TBC that you'd have to purchase, but this is part of the rock pile tools, and they have a relayer tool that I actually really like. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to show you quickly how to use Rockpile's relayer tool, and it's a nice tool that opens up like this, and then you have your list of all of your layers in your project, and then we're going to add our layers to our list down here. So I'm just going to delete that one, and the first thing I'm going to do is let's grab, I'm just going to build my list here, surface, we'll go edge break line, and then we're going to go surface, add in break line. You can see it's building my list here. Edge, let's go road, sidewalk. We're gonna go up to our curb options here. So we got curb back, curb face, and curb flow. And then I'm also gonna grab my center line, maybe my edge of pavements, and I have a few more here I know I need. I got my shoulder, which I think I've already done, and then I've got sidewalk. Okay, so I've got my layer built here. Okay, and now all I need to do is isolate the layers here by using the isolate tool, and then if I simply just double click on here, it'll add it to my layer. So if I hit isolate and I go up to my berm edge, okay, and that's going to be my edge break line. So I just double click. Oops, I gotta do this first. Select my data, double click, and now it's been relayered. Now I'm going to go down to my ditch center line. That's going to be here, and I'm going to go down to my ditch edge, and that's going to be my edge break line. And then I'm going to go down to my sidewalk PI edge, and that's going to be on my sidewalk layer. Curb back, that's going to be on my curb back layer there. Curb face there. Curb flow line, and that's going to be there. And then we're getting down to our center line, which we did, lane edge. Okay, I'm going to put that on my EOP layer, and my PI edge, that's going to be in my EOP layer. And I'm just grabbing the data, isolating it, moving down the list here, and then just double clicking on the layer that I want to move it to, and it's simply moving layers for me. This is hands down the easiest way I've found to do this so far. So shoulder edge, turn edge. Okay, we're going to do that on EOP. And then the last one is pavement, sidewalk pavement edge, and we're going to put that on our sidewalk layer. Okay, so now we've relayered everything. And if I unisolate all this stuff, you can see all of my groups are turned off. All these are on. And just to show you, I'll do a zoom extents. Okay, Control A, there's nothing there, it's all gone. So what I would do at this point is I can get rid of these layers if I wanted. So I can go to CAD, Layer Manager, delete unused and protected layers, and you can see they're all gone. Now what I'm going to do is turn on my road features. Oops, let me zoom extents here. Turn on my groups. Some surface. I don't remember what I all have in here, but I've got everything on. Now the other thing you might have to do is sometimes when these come in from CAD files or DGN files, they might come in with the color not set to by layer. So once I have everything relayered, I'll typically grab it all and I'll right click and go to properties, and then I'll just make sure, okay, colors by layer, weight by layer, line style, everything's by layer, and we should be all set. So now everything here is relayered based on what I need. And in this particular one, I'm going to start doing some corridor models, and I'm ready to go. So there's a lot of cool tools in here to relayer and sort data and work with data. These are just some of the basics. Again, the last tool I showed is a rock pile specific tool, so that's an additional cost, an additional license you have to buy on top of TBC. It's very cost effective. I just wanted to show you this because this relayer command is still one of the tools I use the most when working with this data. So that is a kind of a quick overview of managing layers. Hopefully that helps, and we'll see you again in the next video.